Good evening. This is meeting number 15. It's 2018 at 5:30 p.m. and we are in the Thomas J. Smith Council Chambers. Meeting number 20 is now called to order. Kathleen, let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Kathleen, let's do roll call, please.
Rinker.
Here.
Wilson. Here. Phillips.
Here.
Graham Murray. Here. McCampbell.
Here. Okay, on the agenda tonight, first we have one mayor's award. I have to say there's never been any man in my life that's been more influential than my father, obviously. But he passed away when I was just a young man, and so I kind of looked to other adult males for different qualities that I looked up to that I could glean from. And for about 13, 14 years, I was in the service business, and one of the places that I visited was Case Company, and I got a chance to meet Denny Wilkerson. And he was somebody that embodied a lot of those qualities that I missed, that I didn't have in my father. And I'm glad to say that I'm put in this position where I can recognize you, even though you fought me all the way, but I appreciate you showing up tonight. I want to recognize you for all the qualities and all the things that you did for me, whether you realize it or not. Anyway, so on tonight, it is my privilege to give you this Mayor's Award. Be it known on behalf of the city of Burlington, Iowa, I would like to thank you for being a model Burlingtonian. Your commitment, dedication, and the way you lead by example has been an encouragement to me as a young man and into adulthood. I'm very honored to consider you a friend. You help make Burlington a great place to live, work, and play. On October 15, 2018, this Mayor's Award is presented to my friend, Denny Wilkerson. Come on down.
One of the first things, don't believe a lot of what Shane tells you.
We never do.
But I want to thank him and thank everybody that was related to this, and I hope I keep my image up to Shane. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next we have just a quick surprise and then we'll get into the meeting, but we're going to be saying goodbye to Charlie Nichols. He's been such a tremendous blessing to the city of Burlington, and it's going to be hard to let you go, but we don't have a choice in that. We have to say goodbye and part ways, but we wish you the best in your future life, and these 4 years, man, you really did it. So we just want to recognize you first off with a one clap, council. That's for you, my friend. Be it known on behalf of the city of Burlington, Iowa, I would like to thank you for being a model Burlingtonian no matter where you go. You are one of a kind, and as far as I'm concerned, one of the best. When we needed the best, you gave us your best. Throughout your stay with us, you've had the eye of the tiger, and now we have
The Tiger Grant?
the Tiger Grant. You helped make Burlington a great place to live, work, and play. On October 15, 2018, this Mayor's Award is presented to Mr. Charlie Nichols. Would you please come on down?
Wear that at your next gig and say, hey, I don't know if you know who I am.
Everybody, let's all get in on this, my friends. Thank you. appreciate you as well. Please have a word, my friend.
Well, when I came here 4 years ago, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I don't think that there's any better place that we could have ended up. We've had a lot of firsts here for our family, first job out of college, first house. We raised our first kid here. Really those events that kind of form the building block or the foundation of a life. So Burlington will always be a part of us. We've really enjoyed our time here, and we're leaving behind a lot of great friends and great people. So thank you all, and
Charlie
couldn't
Nichols,
ask
let's
for a
close
better
out.
group of people.
Let's close out and give him
Best of
another
luck,
one
Charlie.
clap, everybody. That's for you, Chuck. That's for you.
Thank you, Charlie.
All right. Before we get into the ugly, Mr. Wilkerson and Nichols family, you guys can dip on out of here. You don't stick around for the rest.
Charlie, unless you want to stay for another riveting city council meeting.
Thank you, sir. All right. Next on the agenda tonight, we have the consent agenda. All matters listed under item 1 consent agenda, having been discussed, are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If a discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. On the consent tonight, we have the usual: finances and miscellaneous, minutes of previous meetings, payroll and city claims, beer, liquor, wine, and cigarettes, reports, and bonds. We have 4 resolutions. The first is a resolution approving nuisance abatements for various properties. The second is a resolution approving final acceptance and release of retention monies for the 2017 Agency Street Widening Project, West End. The third is a resolution authorizing City of Burlington to financially support the Great River Housing Trust Fund for the fiscal year 2020 and 2021, supporting the 2019 grant application to the State Housing Trust Fund. And the fourth is a resolution approving an operating agreement for placement of apparatus for EMS response. We also have 2 appointments, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, we have for the Animal Hearing Board, reappointing Angela Beard for a 3-year term, and the Flint Hills Golf Course Advisory Committee, reappointing Sally Box. Thank you.
For your service. Well done. Is there anybody that would like to have any of these items removed from the consent? I see none. Council?
None.
Your Honor, I have a motion to approve all listed under item 1 consent agenda.
Second.
Moved in second. Kathleen?
Rinker,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Phillips,
Aye.
Graham Murray,
Aye.
McCampbell.
Aye. Well done. This is time set for hearing for consideration of sale of property, parcel number 16-17-228-043, located south of the property locally known as 715 Shaka Khan Drive, City of Burlington, Iowa, with conditions. Publication has been made. Mr. Tislin?
This lot is located directly behind Parkview Care site at 715 Shaka Khan Drive. This is the area at the previous meeting. We secured a sewer easement through this property and through the property to the south at 726 Blackhawk for sewer access to the Parkview Care site that we intend to subdivide and develop there. I guess receipt of that easement, we noted in that resolution that we'd work to transfer sale of this property to the owners of 726 Blackhawk for consideration of that easement. So that's what we're doing at this point, is selling the property there located north of 726 Blackhawk to the owners that can be combined with their lot for consideration of that easement. This lot does not serve a purpose to the larger lot. It kind of makes sense to go with this lot to even out the rear property line in accordance with the homes on to the east and west of this property as well. So this is basically a sale of property for that easement that was granted at the previous meeting.
Questions or concerns from the audience? I see none. Council?
Good.
All right.
I move to close.
Second.
Moved in second. Kathleen?
Rinker,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Phillips,
Aye.
Graham Murray,
Aye.
McCampbell.
Aye.
Your Honor, I have a resolution approving sale of property, parcel 16-17-228-043, located south of the property locally known as 715 Shaka Khan Drive, City of Burlington, Iowa, with conditions.
Second.
Moved in second. Kathleen, let's take the vote.
Rinker,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Phillips,
Aye.
Graham Murray, Aye. McCampbell.
Aye. Okay, number 2. This is time set for hearing for consideration of an ordinance amending section 58.192, motorized vehicles of chapter 58, noise control of the City of Burlington Municipal Code. Publication has been made. Chief.
A citizen had contacted the council here about the noise on Highway 34 from Jake brakes on tractor trailers. And so I had done some research with various communities, both away from ours and close by. West Burlington has an ordinance that prevents engine braking out there. I kind of went with the same language. It is unlawful for the driver of any vehicle to use or operate within the city any mechanical exhaust device, engine brake, compression brake, or similar device that results in excessive, loud, or unusual noise from such a vehicle. Evidence that the noise from the operation of such device is audible at a distance of 100 feet from the motor vehicle is prima facie evidence of violation subject to fine as determined to be a simple misdemeanor. So with signage hopefully along Highway 34 and the city limits, majority of that would probably happen out here right around the bridge, since there's an incline and decline there. So that would probably be a majority of the signage that would need it, or where it's happening at, for them slowing down, coming down to the bridge. Any
Thank you,
questions?
Chief. You guys good?
Yeah, good.
Any concerns from the audience? I see none.
Your Honor, I have a motion to close.
Second.
Moved in second twice. Kathleen.
Rinker.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Phillips.
Aye.
Graham Murray. Aye. McCampbell.
Aye.
Your Honor, I have a motion for the preliminary adoption of the first reading of an ordinance amending section 58.9, parentheses 2, I don't know how to say that, I guess, motorized vehicles of Chapter 58 noise control of the City of Burlington Municipal Code.
Second.
A little bit of a struggle.
Happens that way sometimes. Kathleen, let's vote. That'll be easier.
Rinker.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Phillips.
Aye.
Graham Murray. Aye. McCampbell.
Yes. Okay, ordinance.
Your Honor, I have a motion for final adoption of an ordinance amending section 100.62D, determination of stormwater utility fee, right-of-way of chapter 100, stormwater management and drainage systems, utility of the City of Burlington Municipal Code.
Second.
Thank you.
This ordinance came up as a result of, with the new stormwater fee structure that we have, the airport was significantly impacted, as you would expect from runways. Have a large amount of hard surface, impervious surface. As we tried to get a feedback to where it was before, find a solution for making that be viable and possible. One of the things that we looked at was in terms of right-of-way, which is what we are addressing here tonight. We've already had an exclusion from the stormwater fee for public highways, roads, alleys, and rail right-of-way as exemptions from the stormwater utility fee. This amendment adds the public airport runway right-of-way and public airport taxiway right-of-way to that definition.
Anything else you want to throw in there, James?
Less is more.
Well said. Questions or comments from the audience? Anyone? I see none. You guys have been a lovely audience tonight. Council?
None. Final reading.
Kathleen, let's do this.
Rinker.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Phillips.
Aye.
Graham Murray.
Aye.
McCampbell.
Aye. Okay. Now's the time that we will entertain comments from the audience. Anyone have comments, concerns? Okay. Again, you guys have been fantastic tonight. Mr. Tislin. Kathleen. Peanut butter.
No, just that, I'm gonna miss Charlie. Big shoes to fill.
Well said.
Yeah,
Mr. Billups.
echo those sentiments. It's amazing what kind of impact someone that goes above and beyond can have. His impact will have generations of Burlington people feel it. So hats off to Charlie for a great job. I don't really have much except for the water's going down, thankfully. It looks like it's going to be back to a manageable level here within a week, so that's great news for us.
Right now. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
Well, the Burlington Lunchtime Chamber Music Series is going on again, and that's the third Wednesday of every month, so that'll be this Wednesday from 12:15 to 12:45. It's a free concert at the First United Methodist Church. It's short, 30 minutes. It's a good time, especially for those that are down here. And that is it.
Works for me.
Yeah.
Counselor?
I just want to say hats off to city staff. You guys did the day in the park this last weekend. My daughters and I were out there, and Dawn was able to show them how to play is it jacks? Jacks? Okay. Anyways, just huge applause for you guys. I know you take a Saturday to do that, so appreciate it.
James?
Why is everyone pointing at each other?
Coming back.
And then, Don, maybe we can have an update on where carts are, get them all delivered. But go ahead, Nick, first.
Mr. McGregor, Assistant City Manager.
Well, I wanted to give you an update. As you've seen, the river levels kind of progressed since last Monday when we talked. I wanted to give you an update. I know that there's been some concern. We met today with the engineer on the project with the wall. There's some cracks that have been seeping. Some of them are, some of it was gonna seep no matter what, but there are some cracks that we need the contractor to take care of. And then the panels itself, there's some seeping that's going on. We're going to talk with the product person, the Flood Wall or Flood Control America, and we're going to try and take a look at a bottom seal that's a little bit different. Some of the imperfections in the concrete are exposed when you don't have as much room to fill in that gap. And then on the way, when we take it apart, we're going to try and check and see. The section 16, which is in the gap, actually had a kind of a leak between the bottom panel and the second panel. But most of the issue was actually taken care of because we have the trench drain system, which is kind of nice. You know, we went up and saw Davenport. They didn't have a trench drain system or anything, and so when it rained, it caused a lot of havoc. So our trench drain system runs down and goes into a wet well. So you see the stormwater pumps there that are throwing the water over top of the wall. That has the trench drain, but it also has some storm sewer on the parking lot north of the port, at the auditorium, and then south of the auditorium as well. So and it has seepage lines below, so it collects a lot of water in there, and so that's why you're seeing those pumps pumping over top of the wall. But I wanted to give you kind of, I sent this in an email. The red is our current flood protection. On Saturday, I sent out an email because we didn't really quite know where the river was going to be. The yellow was our future if it jumped up above 22.5, where we would be putting the top of the panels, or the panels on top of the wall. I do think that, assuming that this flood is on its way down for good, it was a good test, I guess, to show people what the wall entailed. If you would throw up those images, for a comparable most recent flood, that was 2013. Our crest was at 22.6, and that is probably thigh high or so worth of water in the auditorium port parking lot there. And then if you go to the next picture, it kind of gives you an idea of the impact that north HESCO wall and then the permanent wall has on the port. You know, we would have we would have evacuated the port building and had everybody move out of there for the time being. And since then, we had a couple activities at the port, and then the auditorium also had some functions. So it's good to see that, you know, what we've saved because of the flood wall. So, you know, we learned a lot because we didn't really know how protecting on the north part of that would work. Right. I mean, we've had several trials this year already. I'd be happy to see no more flooding happen for the rest of the year. But we're learning, but we've got some things going. You also see some changes here. The railroad is pushing for some access to their tracks. We are across their railroad right away. It looks like it's going to dip below an allowable level on Thursday, so we will be taking HESCOs down around the track area. We will not take down fully just because we don't have we want to see the river return to a, a lot lower level, but to be able to get the rail to function, we need to try and, assist as best we can to get the Hawkeye hole, as I call it, the square that we had to put up because of the water equalized and it started coming out the top. So we have to take a pretty good section of that down and then across the tracks on the north part there. So you'll see that happen here this week.
Great.
Answer any questions any of you have on what we've done and why we've done it. And
Was the leaking in the concrete, or was it? I know there was leaking with the seals.
There was, I wouldn't say there's leaking in the concrete. There's some seepage that you see, and I exposed a couple of pretty good sized faulted areas that need to be corrected. And our engineer on the project saw that and took note of the things that need to be corrected. So I think there's going to maybe be some routing out and some epoxy put in there to assist.
And it was kind of nice to go up and take a look at Dubuque's wall around Devon Park and see how theirs performed versus ours, because they have some of the same seepage type issues, and their system isn't set up to address it as well as what ours is. So you can see their seepage isn't as bad on the bottom seals, and it has to do, it's a different type of product. I think that has helped them a little bit to address it, which is where you're looking for a modification on this.
Correct. A different bottom seal, I think, would help us tremendously. I also think as the river comes up and goes through those pores of the concrete, I think that next time you won't see the same amount of seepage coming through because it fills with sediment and other type of materials. So, other than that, I think my staff performed pretty admirably. Taking on something they had no idea what they were really getting themselves into. I'm glad that we didn't have to put the top of the wall on, just as doing those gaps took a little bit of learning, and I'm glad that we labeled everything per panel, because when you do construction like that, it's not going to go in, perfectly as you had hoped it would. So, concrete does not really move a whole lot.
Well, as a person that had a business on the riverfront for a long time, for 40 years, I can tell you that and the performance we've had is so much better than what we had before. So we're blessed to have it.
You're here.
How many man hours do you think you saved?
To try and HESCO that whole, I don't know that you would try and put HESCO barriers up the same way that you did the wall, but you would in the past, what we've done is we've ringed around the lift station on the furthest south, and then we've ringed around the auditorium. We've actually made connections at some point too, and then we go across in the crossing on Jefferson, or not Valley Street up to Front Street, and then we'd go down Front Street. So to do that, you're talking a lot about a ton of man hours. Those HESCOs they really do stop the water, but they are not forgiving on manpower and materials. That's a lot of sand. So I wouldn't have an estimate. It was a learning curve too on setting up those gaps this time versus what it will be in the future.
But it's safe to say we saved hundreds of hours of man hours.
You saved a lot of man hours. You didn't get to save as much as you could have because we had that opening on.
Oh, that's right.
The hole in the Hawkeye. That took us way more time. We would have been done. I think we even performed until Thursday afternoon late last week to try and get everything done, just because you're trying to work around railroad tracks, and we had a belt placer in there. We wouldn't have normally done it, for one, but two, we had a belt placer there, so we went too high just in case something happened. You already spend the $2,000 to get a belt placer there. So we went too high on it. In the future, we're never going to have to touch that aspect of it. And we're actually looking, there's another ring further to the east of that. There's some concrete that's kind of floating with manhole lids, and those lids will surcharge as the river level backs up the Hawkeye. So like right now, it's probably around 4th or 5th Street, the equalization of the stormwater. So those manholes have water coming out of them, so we have to ring them to contain that. I think that we're going to look at something other than HESCO barriers to try and do that, just because we're going to do that all the time until we get a lift station pump.
We've looked at a few different products, but it'd be nice to see them in action somewhere too, to see how.
I'd like to see this river level go down and then try and plan around doing something like that here. The product that I've seen that I think would really work is called Muscle Wall. It's like an 8-foot plastic wall that you can end up reusing. You don't have to worry about the thing about HESCOs is a lot of the ones that are on the bottom that have been
They're shot.
wet, they're gone. They are destroyed. So I'd say about 40% of them end up being destroyed, and you have to replace them.
The
So
cloth material doesn't last very
it doesn't
long.
hold up. Sometimes they can refurbish them because the brackets itself are safe, but they don't hold up as long either after they're refurbed. So
Good.
That's all I got.
Thank you, sir. Don, you gotta give us an update on the trash cans? Your excitement is overwhelming.
Tomorrow, we will, we've been assembling a list of people who've called indicating that they desire to change the size of their cart. I think we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 345, 350 addresses that are asking for sizes different than what they have. We're going to start tomorrow. It won't be very efficient because we don't really have any carts in inventory. So we see this house here has a 35 and they want to go to a 65, and there's a house over here that has a 65 and they want to go to a 35. So we go get this one and we take the cart over there, and this exchange type stuff. Not going to be very efficient. We don't have a lot of time between now and November 1st. But we're going to try to continue to do that for the next week and a half until we receive our order of yet to be manufactured carts. But when that arrives, then things will pick up a little bit more as far as efficiency, hopefully, and delivery rate. So we did have a few carts available today, and I sent one of our men out to deliver carts to a couple of houses. I had people running out from their house, waving at the truck, saying, "Stop here, stop here." But he has a route that he's got laid out for him, have addresses he has to go to. That will be the same thing that'll happen for the next couple of weeks. And just be patient, and we hope to get your cart to you in a timely manner before November 1st.
Sounds good.
Yeah, they look good.
So I don't know if there's been any improvements regarding nuisances, or when I look down the alleys, and it seems to me that things look good, but maybe it's just the uniformity of having the same color and lid on the carts. But no, I think they'll be an attractive addition to our garbage collection program.
I agree, and I haven't seen any lids blowing around, so I
No,
think that's a
no.
benefit. You don't have to drive like this on a windy day through the street. It's just nice.
How are the collectors, the guys out there actually doing the collecting? What's their feedback?
Well, they're sore in different muscles than they were before. You know, pushing and pulling on the carts, you're using some different muscles than you would if you're actually lifting and carrying. But I think that they've indicated that their backs are not as sore. It's a different type of program, and it'll take some time to get adjusted to the most effective and most efficient way of moving a cart from point A to point B when it's on wheels. And of course, we all know that there's different surface conditions in the alleys and even on the streets that they have to contend with. So I think they're working hard at making this change to this program. I know that I was approached at the City in the Park day in regards to the orientation or the positioning of the cart relative to the street or to the alley. If you look at the lids of these carts, there is language on the lid, and there are arrows that point away from the wheels towards the front of the cart, and it says something to the effect of, "This is to be pointed to the street." Well, that's led some people thinking that even though they used to have alley pickup, they're supposed to take it out in the street, which that's not the case. Most places it's the same set-out location. But those arrows are generic labeling that's intended for a fully automated collection system. If we had a fully automated truck, which that may come about someday, then the carts definitely have to be positioned so that the arrow is pointing, whether it be towards the street or whether it be pointed towards the alley travel lane, in order for that arm to come out properly and dump that cart. But in lieu of those fully automated trucks, the orientation of the cart is not critical. We purposely did not indicate you must have your cart in this position, because the different types of surfaces that exist in the city, the positioning of the cart is best left up to the homeowner, that they feel that's going to be the most stable and less problem for them. But the men have to grab the handles, so some people are purposely turning the handles toward the travel lane, and that does probably make it a little bit easier for the collectors and a little bit faster.
Sounds good. You guys good? Good. Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Don.
Would say thanks to all the staff who was involved with City Day. So above and not their normal activities to have to do. I think it's a great thing that we can do to be out in front of the community and have all our departments represented. So I really do appreciate it. It would have been nice to have had it be a warmer day. I think the award for the loudest voice goes to the mayor. He certainly commanded attention out there.
I don't appreciate your attitude tonight.
We're very animated, and that's great. But we still had quite a few kids who went through, and I think it was still a good event. I think that as we look in future years, the group that talks or kind of coordinates that may look at doing it earlier, potentially in September. The week that we do it this was a statewide event 4 or 5 years ago, started by the League of Cities, and they had this as the week to celebrate City Day, and we kind of developed it out of it. They're no longer doing City Day. It's one that we do like, and we'd like to continue to do, and we can be a little bit more flexible with dates now that we're not trying to coordinate with the state, so that might happen as we move forward. Would mention local option sales tax funding. We got our numbers in for our true-up payment, along with, we'd already gotten numbers for what our, and I can't remember when we got that, that's back in July for the monthly payments, but with the true-up, which is, we don't get until we got end of last week, our local option sales tax is going to be $300,000 below budget for this year. So put some perspective in where we've been. Local option sales tax collections this year will be right about $3.8 million. FY14 was at that $3.8 million level. FY10 was at 3.7. Every other year has been higher. So you can, this is a fairly significant decrease. As perspective, on the high end, FY17 was 4.6 million. So we've come down quite a bit. A lot of factors can play into it. You know, we were talking with was talking with the chamber about this to some extent this morning. I mentioned to them that Fort Madison had emailed me a few weeks ago when they got their numbers for the new year, and we're talking about how they'd seen their percentages come down 15% this year from last year, and it was 15% lower last year from the year before that, and we're not a whole lot different. And they were wondering how do you attribute it? One of the things I mentioned to him, besides not knowing their local economy, but just with the plant construction that went on, not only did we have so many people here working, but all the materials that were purchased had sales tax collections on them. And so that was something that spiked us up. I don't know how much. It's hard to get numbers. You don't get any individual information on this from the state, so it's hard to know where those things factor in. but it does have a big impact on our ability to fund projects. I think we can make it through this year. We knew going into closeout of last year that this year's numbers were going to be lower than what we budgeted, and we had some cutbacks on transfers that we did out of local option sales tax to try to help with that. And we'll have some in this year as well. One of them that's natural to the general fund. We do the first 50% of sales tax collections goes to the general fund, and that number will just naturally be 50% lower than what we'd originally budgeted. But it will have an impact as we move into this budget season and look at what we can afford for capital projects. I don't think we'll have to cut anything out of this year's capital projects to make it happen, because we did have a balance, a decent balance, but we will have to have less on our CIP that's funded specifically from this than what we had budgeted in the current year for a 5-year CIP. So that's the challenge that's out there. Matt did bring back good news in terms of just where we stand. We had talked during the budget cycle about, or after that, we talked at the budget cycle of potential for a ground emergency medical transport. Is that right? GEMT. The potential for having a bill go through the state legislature, which was approved in March or April. The groundwork for that is in place to get enhanced Medicaid funding for our ambulance service as we move forward. Timeline for that looks to be that we may begin to see those payments start next July. That's tentative. We don't know exactly when, but we're looking at the potential to see a couple of $100,000 of enhanced payments into our ambulance service to support their operations, which will help as you know, as the SAFER grant's going off, that at least partially compensates for that as we move forward. So some good, some bad with news there.
We'll take some good.
Quit shopping on Amazon, people.
I would just point out, and we'll talk a little bit at staff tomorrow about this, just with the Tiger grant. It's a phenomenal project. It's a timeline that goes through 2022, I think. That's for project closeout, and that's 15 months after project completion, so 2023. The paperwork that's going to go on with this is going to be a pain, and we just lost our person who would have been doing that. And you know, we may get someone who comes in and does that again, but that's not in the ability to do that's not in that job description. Charlie brought a lot more, and that's an area that he brought a lot more to us than what was necessarily part of what that job is supposed to do. So I don't know how that's going to work, but when we do projects like this, there's an awful lot of time that goes with it. You know, you guys had a webinar that I didn't get in on, or phone conference call on this last Tuesday. Which reminds me of DOT funding. The base app agreement that comes out of that is, I want to say it's like 40 pages long, and we don't have anyone identified to go through the details on that and get that done. So we'll have to talk about how are we going to do that. Which of us is the lucky participant to do it? And that's just one step of many along the way that will have that same issue come up from a staffing perspective. So as you think about just what we can and can't accomplish, everything that we try to do, there's a cost to in terms of time and effort, and what has to get dropped in order to make it happen. Not that we can't do things, just that you got to understand that there's a limit to what we can accomplish. Right on. I didn't make it to that conference call because I went up to DOT's meeting. They considered our funding request for RISE funding out in the business park. Pretty much knew that if they were going to be considering the request that it would get approved, but it's nice to go up and do it just in case they have any questions. And they did approve that. So that's one that we'll be having contract documents come forward over the course of the next couple of months. I think that application, by the time it was modified, was they shortened the length of the road that was eligible for RISE funding. So it's about that portion of the project's an $840,000 project, RISE funding $420,000. We'll have, I would assume that we'd be looking to go out, that's a project for next year. I think it has been in our current CIP in the following year's budget. It'll get moved up, and that actually works better. I think that we'll see how we work that and coordinate it with the rest of that road getting done. But the timing on that works better with the indoor rec facility getting done. That facility is behind a couple of weeks. That's what I've heard. Its original schedule, but it is underway. You get a chance to go out there and take a look. They've done a lot of the concrete work. Not all of the foundation has been finished yet, I don't think. At least it wasn't the last I looked at it. They're in the process of trying to fill, I don't know if anyone's seen the ads on it, but their main position they're trying to get filled. They're, I think, in the interview process on that now. Trying to get someone on board to start doing some scheduling as they look to try to have events hosted this next, over the late winter part. I think mid-January maybe is their current time frame to try to be open. I don't know, again, I don't know whether they'll hit that or not. The weather has certainly impacted them like it has some of our other projects. I suppose I've talked long enough to take what could have been a short meeting.
Well, let's double check. Are you done?
I think so. I could talk about other things, but I could get them out of
Chief?
Yeah.
Mayor, Saturday we attended. You were there at the NAACP banquet, and Major Grimshaw was recognized down there for a Citizens Award by the NAACP for his work in the community and the police department for minority recruitment. It was a great honor. He's done he's put a lot of dedication into that program within the community, and it's very heartfelt, and I think it was received very well, and it was a nice event to attend and to see that recognition. And if any of you know Darren very well, he definitely puts his heart and soul into everything, and he did with that minority recruitment effort, and it goes well beyond that with his relationships that he's built between the community and the police department itself. So I just wanted to recognize him in front of the council and make it known that he did receive that award, and it was very well deserved.
Well said.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Well said. Yeah, to piggyback off on that, just want to give a shout out to all the staff that showed up for that. I've been going for, I'm not sure how many years now since I've been on the council, but it's always just good to see representation. And Chief was there with his lovely wife. God bless her. She puts up with so much. Listen. But it was good to see, everybody there. I need to, my grandson is watching tonight. Tomorrow's his birthday. He's going to be 9. Happy birthday, Keegan. Also want to recognize everybody that participated in the Alzheimer's Walk Saturday morning. That was a phenomenal success. It was on the riverfront. We wouldn't have been able to have it there if it wasn't for the flood wall. So it was phenomenal. A lot of good people showed up, and glad to be a part of that. Also glad to be part of City Day in the Park as well. Yes, I was loud. We played some mayor games, and we had a great time. And I heard some little kid, before he even got to my game, he was walking toward me, and he had just left. He's coming from your area. I don't know what he did, but he was saying, "Mom, this is awesome!" And you know, I look forward to that. It's that's what we're there to do. And yeah, for all the city staff that showed up and did what they did, I still think one of the greatest things was it 3 years ago when you did the little water test deal? Was that 3 years ago? I still have one of those. I'm a kid too, and I wanted one of those. And man, if we could ever do that again, that was really cool. It was well received. So anyways, a phenomenal week in Burlington. Again, shout out to all the staff, everybody that helps make all this run. An extra shout out to Katie Music and Tabitha Girdner. They do a fantastic job for us as well. So anything else, James? Did your team lose this weekend? It doesn't matter. Go Hawkeyes. Are we ready to close out, guys? Oh, I'm sorry. Peanut butter. You had one more before we close out?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that everyone's aware that Hedda Gilbert starts this weekend. So starting Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, Perkins Park will hold a plethora of stuff. I just love that word, plethora
That's
of
right.
stuff. So a lot of vintage things. I was pricing things yesterday. So vintage toys and dolls and games and housewares, as along with modern clothing, a resale shop. So half of the proceeds go to the children's in the area. So eyeglasses, prescriptions that children may need for school nurses. So great cause. Come out and support Hedda Gilbert's sale starting Friday at Perkins Park.
All right. Got my best clothes from Hedda Gilbert. This suit came from Hedda Gilbert. It didn't, but it could have. Are we ready to roll?
Yes.
Let's do it before it turns ugly. Kathleen.
He's the one introduced.
Motion to close.
Second.
There you go. Kathleen, now put the finisher on.
Rinker,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Phillips,
Aye.
Graham Murray,
Aye.
McCampbell.
Yes, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.